Hey everyone, in today's video we're going to check out my latest eBay purchase, a Pioneer SX3900. They were asking $1,000 and I got them down to $500 with one message. Plus $100 shipping, I'm $600 deep into this already. Let's see if it made it here in one piece. It's actually insanely windy today. This is not a good day to do this. My God, this thing is massive. Packing peanuts. They're gonna go flying. Not good. Not good. Oh no. Ugh. Dang it. Oh, this is so stupid. This is so stupid. Well, here it is, folks, the Pioneer SX3900. I was mostly concerned that the glass would break during transit like it does on a lot of Pioneers of this vintage, but it looks like we're doing okay here. This is always the most nerve-wracking part of buying these things on eBay. So I already know this thing has a number of problems, and the seller was very clear about that in their description, and that is how I was able to get this for such a low price, relatively speaking. I pointed out the missing covers for these switches here. I pointed out some previous sales, and they agreed that my valuation was about right at $500 for a parts unit. That's basically what this is. One thing I noticed in unboxing, that's loose. Inside, it's actually looking a little bit dirty. Might need to do something about that. But overall, I think this is gonna clean up really nice once we're finished with it. On the back, fairly straightforward. I don't know what the heck is going on with these pre to main jumpers here. Overall, this unit looks complete. It looks exactly as it did in the description, and I'm happy with my purchase so far. Luckily, it looks like they all landed on my property. Clean them up. That makes me feel better. I think it's worth discussing the legacy of the Pioneer SX3900. This is at the very, very tail end of the monster receiver wars that many of us are familiar with in the late 1970s, and this marks the beginning of the end. You see, Pioneer's flagship receiver, the most powerful one they ever made, is the SX1980, and this is what followed that receiver. How many watts per channel does this one have? Only 120. The monster receiver wars were over. Technology was changing, the industry was changing, and this marks the beginning of transitioning away from the golden age of stereo receivers. This 3900 looks and feels just like its predecessors, like the 1250, 1280, and 1980, but there are some key differences and some really cool new technology buried inside of this as well. I'll show you right after we power it on for the first time. We'll go right here to the test box. And we'll just use line. Let's take the seller at their word and see if this thing turns on without blowing a fuse. Because what I really want to show you is in these two boxes right here. See, take a look at that. We've got vacuum fluorescent displays, quartz locked FM tuner, yet we still have a dial string and a regular tuner pointer. Let's go to FM here, get that thing turned on, and see, when I do this, the station changes. And we were putting it at 96, this says 96.3. So there's some good opportunity for us, right? I'm pointing at 94, but it says 95. So tuner's got some big problems. Another very cool thing is we've got light up buttons. So if I take that out, well, that one's burnt out, but that one's not. It lights up when we push that in. And these selector buttons work just like a 1280, but looks like only a few of them light up. Like I said, seller disclosed that there are some big problems with this thing. This is going to need a lot of work. But I just get such a kick out of the fact that we have both this digital readout and this pointer all in the same unit. That is just the coolest thing to me. It's the convergence of the past and the future right before you. Let's go ahead and get some speakers plugged into this monster. If you're hearing any insane noises, it's because we've got insanely high winds outside right now. And behind this wall is the exterior, and to the other wall is also the exterior. So it's a little noisy. Since my speakers are connected right here, let's go ahead and check this for DC offset. On the left channel, we've got nothing. On the right channel, not enough to concern me. I see we've got some sound, and over here, also some sound. So it looks safe. Let's turn on the speakers. Oh wow. How about that? Sound already. But sounds horrible. That's gonna need some work. So just take a listen to that. That is awful. Just awful. Yeah, we've had a few on this channel where I've said this is the worst I've ever seen. This might be one of them. Everything is so dirty. But the good thing about that is it's coming in and out. We can get good sound if we really try. Which means electrically we're in okay shape. So there's that. Also noticed loudness does not stay in. Some other buttons are doing the same thing. 15 hertz filter button does not stay in. Switch cover for the power switch is rotated about 90 degrees. Missing two covers over here. Hopefully that's common with like an SX3600. Folks, we've got our work cut out for us. But I'm dying to know what's going on under the cover. Let's take a look inside. Another thing to note, a lot of people talk about the reduction in quality starting at the X80 series. Well, those receivers, the high-end ones, used to have actual wood veneer. This one, all we've got is the vinyl, which is kind of sad. Alright, time for the big reveal, and this is gonna determine what the next step in this video is. Oh boy. Yes, that's not clean. You see, gone is the beautiful layout of the center-mounted transformer and your two filter caps on both sides from the 1980 and 1280. I think the 1250 as well. Over here are those filter caps mounted on their side, barely legible from all of the crud on there. Then also mounted on its side is the toroidal transformer. Toroidal? I'll have to look that up, I don't remember. Then in here, this was a little bit more protected, but we've still got plenty of dust over here. I see we've got capacitors with their sleeves sliding down, so those are likely going to exhibit some bad signs. Over here we got a fancy IC chip. That's probably unobtainium if it breaks. But I think the worst is over here. We've got all of this stuff. That's your selector switches, folks. It's kind of cool the way they did it. It started in the late 70s. You've got a bunch of things like this. See, you've got those rods pushing the switches back here because it's easier to package it there. But one thing I wasn't expecting to see is you see those blue cables through there? That's actually for switches. If you look closely, you can see a little metal strip moving inside of there, and that kind of works as a cable, if you will, to actuate switches underneath that board with the selector switch right through in there. And it's also a little disappointing to see such a dinky little tuner cap in their flagship receiver of the era. There's not anything protecting it. I would absolutely call this the beginning of the end. You can see where the industry is headed. This is just part of the transition here. I still think it's really cool though. I like it. And I think it's going to sound good when it's done. Yeah, this one's real gross. That's what's coming out of this one. Let's get those capacitors and transformer cleaned. Let's get the bottom cover off. There you go. So I'm just going to take a look inside of here and see if there's anything I missed or spots I could have gone a little bit more aggressive with it. And I don't see anything that I'd really care to go harder on. Everything looks like it's been gotten, and this is again a unit that appears to have been in a dusty environment, but a clean, dusty environment, since everything has rinsed off just beautifully. I'll be honest with you guys, I'm a little bit nervous about this one. The 3900's got a lot of unobtainium integrated circuit chips in here, and some different technology than your regular early and mid-70s receiver. I hope this one works out, I really do. And the best chances we have of that is moving on to the compressed air portion of the process. So I'm going to dry this thing out the best I can. And I almost forgot to take off the faceplate. I guess I'll just get this briefly, even though I just dried it out. Oh, it's probably the heaviest thing that thing's ever felt. All right, double trouble. Let's let them be. All right, we're out of the oven. Let's take a minute to marvel at how different this thing looks. I mean, look over here. That was a bunch of caked on who knows what over there. Now you can actually read the capacitor, make out that it's actually a capacitor. Heat sinks are totally clean. All these switches, all that junk is gone. The only really big problem I had with the power washing was this cap was kind of coming unwound. See all that? I don't really know what to do about that. I'll probably just trim it and leave it. My friend said don't do it to this one. He was pretty concerned, but I did it anyways. Let's see if his concerns were valid. Plug it into device under test, set it to dim bulb, and let's turn it on. Okay, let's see, can we get, yep, FM turns on, or that's AM. There's FM. And the thing still moves when I do this. So we power on without a short. That's really good news. If we zoom in right here, we can see the tuner is doing stuff. It's telling us to tune. I'm going to check the speaker terminals for DC offset and see what's going on. At the right channel for the A speakers, we've got 18 millivolts, and the left channel 34 millivolts. Those are excellent numbers. Let's go to AC. Let's turn up the volume. And in theory, we'll see some music there. We might have a tape monitor. Yep, there we go. Does it get louder? Yes, it does. Now the other channel. There it is. All right, let's plug in the speakers. Moment of truth. Volume up. There it is. How about that? Radio works great. Let's try out everybody's favorite song and push buttons until we hear it. There it is. And we still very much so have a dirty control. The control I'm most concerned about is this volume potentiometer. You can hear lots of static in that. And the reason I'm concerned is this. Take a peek back there. I'll use my light to show it. That there is not a typical potentiometer. That is a sealed type potentiometer. So we're going to have to figure out how the heck we clean something that's not supposed to be taken apart. Or at least to my understanding, it's not supposed to be taken apart. And then this right here might be a casualty of the power washing. It looks like we've lost a little latch or a little tab for locking into the housing there. So I might need to 3D print one of those or something. Oh my god, look at this loaf. Have you seen a more perfect loaf? This is perfection, folks. Perfection. Sadie, you are perfection. Yes. Alright folks, it's been a month or two since we've looked at this, and I think I'd like to clean the controls today so we can set ourselves a fresh baseline. And I don't know if you guys have noticed, just looking at this thing as I've been working on it, I don't think this is going to be very easy to work on. So I'm a little nervous to start taking it apart, see how frustrated I get. But I'm pretty sure it's like all pioneers of this era. You gotta start undoing all this stuff, take all these screws out and flip these boards out from underneath to clean them. So let's start with that. What I will do first is flip. And let's just take a look underneath. Well, this one here should be fairly simple. Looks like we just need the deep sockets. Let's see, are they 12s? Yep, those are 12s. And then this one's gonna be a little bigger. Looks like a 15 potentially. Nah, it's a 14. And it's loose. Didn't even need it. Huh. These are all quite loose. Wonder what's up with that. And of course we've got one screw holding this in place, and that'll probably release the board once this is out. Can we flip it? You know what? I think I'm going to remove this entire black metal piece and just have that come right out. You know, I've been working on these a long time, and I was watching somebody's video the other day. I can't remember who it was. And I saw this entire front black panel removed, and I was like, oh, I've been kind of leading people the wrong way in a sense, because by removing this whole thing, it makes everything much easier to get to, as long as you're okay with keeping track of all these screws here, right? So we'll work on that right now, and we'll see how that treats us. I actually need to get this entire lower section too. All these other guys are attached down here. And then this headphone jack, it's using a clip kind of like you find on a brake line if you're doing brakes on a car. Okay, that should be everything. This should come out with, I'm expecting a little bit of drama, but not too much, hopefully. Okay. Seems here that, what is this? Oh, there we go. Alright, there it is. Look at that. No more trying to get past stuff, doing it this way. But this is all pretty vulnerable now, where we're going to want to be careful of that, because that's a big board and you don't want to repair that if you don't have to. And since this is early 80s stuff, we are beginning to see the start of little connectors like this. Blue wire facing me. Hopefully I can remember that. That just makes it a little bit easier to move this thing around. So for these switches here, they're look like a potentiometer, but actually I think there's just some kind of cam sliding something through this section right here, because that's where it's attached to the board. So how do we get in there? Well, looks like we might be able to open it up slightly. If we're very careful, we might be able to bend this guy back a little bit, which I'm being pretty stupid about it. I'm going off of the circuit board to bend that, so I should be going off the metal case like that, right? Let's see. Can I see inside there? Can you see inside of there? See, look at that little block moving back and forth. So since I've bent that tab up, that means I can very easily get some contact cleaner in there and flush that out instead of trying to go through that little tiny hole left from the sheet metal. I'll just let that in there and do that a bit. Then I'll take the Deoxit D5 and spray some in there next. And then I'll just close that up with my finger. Boom. It's like we were never even there. Alright, I just finished these guys. We got the potentiometers with the F5 and this middle switch with the D5. But I'm going to move on to this right here. This switch, you may recall, I showed it not retracting. You'll see this one works properly. It'll go in, it'll go out, in, out. This one, don't get any of that. So I want to figure out why that's happening and see if I can repair it. So first thing I'll need to do is, there's a little snap ring right here. Well, it's not a ring, it's just a snapping something. I'd just like to slide that off without breaking the shaft. And then that's going to free the spring. So I've got that going for me now. So you can see it almost kind of wants to. So I think I want to pull back these metal tabs here. See if I can use the mend it mark method of using these guys. Oh, that actually worked really well. I actually just bought a brand new pair of these. I'm going to go grab my old one. I'm switching to my old pair of these that I moved to the garage, but I guess I'll just keep them back up here again. I might as well just take this whole thing out, so I'll go ahead and desolder here. Of course, they bent one pin, so we'll have to straighten that. I know you're not supposed to do this, but I do it all the time. Now, in theory, I should be able to stick a screwdriver under here and kind of work this out. Yep. Okay, there's the switch. And it looks like it should just kind of come apart in a way. So it looks like if I just take this screwdriver and kind of jam it in the side and start twisting it, we come apart a little more. There we go. I think that's it. Okay, it's apart. So here's how this thing works. You've got this plastic plunger, and what it's doing is it is kind of taking these guys right here. It's going to catch that. It's going to move this from side to side, and that's your switching. And it keeps the position with this feature right here. You may have seen the little guy right here kind of moving around as I actuated the switch. It's that little thing in there. There's a little pin sticking out, and that's going to ride inside of this geometry right here and allow it to go in and then go out and go in and go out kind of thing. But I was looking closely, and if I flip around here, there appears to be a foreign object. Well, it's not foreign. I think it's a piece of this track. Let's see if I can get that out. Yep, that right there. I think that this little piece of plastic right here broke off inside of here, because if I look closely, I do think I see some wear or where it may have broken. So what that means is this will never work again, because I can't just glue that back into place. But there is another switch in the unit exhibiting the exact same problems, and that one is right over here. This is the loudness switch. Same thing. And this one we definitely want working, for sure, because I love the loudness button. So I think I'll go ahead and remove this one also, and then we can compare. Oh geez, they bent 2 pins on this one. And again, I'm going to come in from the side, or try to. This little seam there, just gotta get in there somehow. There we are. And I can just work my way around. Yep. And that should be it. I'm gonna check carefully for debris. And yes, I believe I found the exact same failure mode, except this time it's sitting in this little plunger here. So yep, and I don't know how well you can see that. We'll see how far the camera can zoom. And these little camcorders are pretty incredible with how well you can zoom and how far and whatnot. There it is, right there. I'll bet you if we looked at all the other switches, we wouldn't find anything wrong with that little section there. So best course of action here is probably to just buy working used switches out of a parts unit. These are probably common to the 3600, 3700 cheaper models. So that's a shame, but here we are. This is beginning of the end type stuff. We don't see these kinds of problems in the earlier models. For now, we need to keep moving. We need to get this, is this the balance control? Yes, it is. We'll just spray some F5 in there. Actually, no, we'll do contact cleaner first. Get in from the hole on this side. And get in from this side. Throw some D5 in this thing. I'm kind of doing this one upside down. I should probably flip the unit over. Now we can get this in and get it better. Got one here too. And now we come right here to this volume potentiometer. There was quite a bit of noise in this thing when we were turning the volume up and down. And I'm gonna need to figure out how to adjust that because this is one of those sealed type volume potentiometers. Yeah, let's remove it from the board and go from there. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4 bent leads here. Great. Perfect. Okay, there it is. All right, I want to do a small test on this thing just to kind of demonstrate what's going on. I think this is the loudness tap, so what we can do is we can go, I don't know, here. Let's go to this one first just to show you that this is a, well, 93K pot, at least right there. And if we go right here, we're shorted right now because we're turned all the way up. But if I turn it all the way down, let's just kind of go to the bottom here. We're back to that 93K. Okay, so I'm going to bring up the volume. Let's just get the probe situated a little better. I want you to pay attention to the numbers as we go up. So that's fine, right? But like, look at this bar right here. This is kind of showing like a graphical representation of the number. See, we're supposed to go from 91 to about 89, but you see those numbers in between? We jump way down. Like, every time I move through one notch of this thing, it just jumps way down and then back to where it should be. So that right there is evidence to me that this is pretty dirty or there's something wrong with it. So I'm curious if I just take, because I can stick my fingernail through this part, I wonder if I can get some of this stuff in here. Will that help it? Let's see. Let it drain out if it wants to, if any even got in. So let's do that test a second time here. Yeah, that helped a lot, actually. No more jumps. Okay, so that's a viable fix right there. Okay, so that's what do you call it, gang number 1. Let's go to gang number 2. Let's see, I never sprayed in here. Did any of the stuff make it over there? Looks like some may have. I'll have to look at the schematic and try to understand why we have a 4-gang potentiometer on a stereophonic receiver. This is something you would see on a quadraphonic. So anyways, I'm glad I took that out. I think I'll just kind of spray stuff in here. Inside. And now we might as well throw some F5 in there. Maybe. That might be a mistake, but I'm going to do it. How's the worst that could happen? Well, if it's still working well at the end of the video, then I'll be happy. Okay, let's work on getting this back in. We see that all these pins have little sections where you can kind of bottom out, so it shouldn't be too bad. I'll straighten a few of them just in case we have some trouble. Just taking the pliers and pinching the ones that are bent so we slide right in easily. Okay, there it is. Of course, this position will be pretty important because the volume control is going to have to butt right up to it. So I'll go ahead and bend that one and this one, since they don't go to anything. Actually, with those two bent, it's feeling pretty solid. It's looking to be sitting pretty flat, so let's whip out the iron and get to work. I just got through a spool of solder, folks. I don't know how long I've had that one in. It's been a long time. And now we know that if this needs to come back out again, it's not so bad. But we are not done with the switches cleaning. We still have these guys right here, and then there's two hiding under here. Those are going to be interesting. But let's just start up here with these four working switches. I'm just going to give 1 squirt of D5 into the top here, and just hope that that is able to kind of work its way through and clean those contacts sitting on the bottom like we saw. And I'm going to be not terribly aggressive with these because we know that they are fragile. Next, we're moving down to the speaker switches. They're kind of hiding underneath that board. If I can twist that out of the way. We got these two right here, but they also have some cables going to them. We'll get to that in a minute. I'll show you what's going on, but till then, we can get some deoxit going through the top here. Like I said, there's these black cables kind of going back and then up into there. And those are going over to the actual speaker switches that are on a board located in the very, very back. Now, short of completely disassembling the entire unit, they're located back there. But what I can do is I can fit a deoxit straw in there, and I can at least do something, right? Let's just give that a shot and see if we have any problems later. Yeah, I really didn't anticipate how much this thing was going to absolutely suck to work on, but here we are. I watched the X-Ray Tony B video on one of these from 6, maybe 8 years ago, I can't remember. He did one of these, and he did a full FM alignment. Well, we might reference that video later, but yeah, he said, these are not for a beginner. And he could not be more correct. This is not a beginner's unit. This thing sucks to work on. Hopefully it doesn't suck when we're done. Next thing is these guys. Remember I showed you those cables that were in the beginning of the video? That goes to these guys, so there's no cleaning to do up here, maybe some lubricating, but they feel fine to me. These cables go all the way to the back here, and to get to those properly, you need to remove this entire board, which has this whole contraption, and I'm not really feeling too enthusiastic about doing that. I've got relatively decent access to these things. I just gotta go in and give it some deoxit and hope that it gets in. Yep, I can see that moving through. So this should be sufficient right here, and I'll just do that for all three. Just a real quick public service announcement for all the ESR 70 owners out there. I looked up the user manual because I just wanted to get some questions about some capacitors I'm testing answered, and it turns out they want you to replace the battery every year to prevent like corrosion and stuff. You know, these alkaline batteries like to you know, spew their white juices sometimes. So let's just check the voltage on this thing. It'd help if I put it in view. We're down to 1.34 volts, which is not 1.5, but it was working. I never got a low battery light, but I just figured, you know, we all have these laying around. These are not expensive. You might as well just get in the habit of replacing it every year like the user manual said. Why was I in the user manual? Well, I was wanting to get some answers on what is a proper ESR reading, because I remembered reading the manual when I bought this thing, and the manual states that certain ESR values for certain capacitors are fine. So for example, the lower the capacitance value of the capacitor, the higher the ESR reading will be. And the higher the voltage rating of the capacitor, the lower the ESR rating will be. So basically there's a table in the manual based off of a certain series of capacitors that's going to tell you what is acceptable ESR. So I just wanted to measure some of these orange guys. So this is a 0.33 microfarad, 50 volt, and these aren't great for these lower value capacitors. Like 4.7 is the lowest value they show in the table, but you can see right here we're on point for capacitance, but 10 ohms ESR seems like a lot. But if you look at that table and you look at a 4.7 microfarad 50 volt capacitor, it's saying you could have up to 28 ohms ESR. So this is probably a perfectly acceptable cap, because I'm looking at this board and you know it's got a lot of the orange guys that are notorious for going bad or getting leaky. I pulled this one, it tested great. I pulled this one, it tested just as you saw. So I think I'm just going to leave these capacitors in place because they're just tone caps. Obviously the preamp was working, there's no issue here. So by leaving this cap in here, we quote, maintain the warm vintage characteristics of the amplifier, or whatever, you know. I'm not too worried about it. I just want to give a quick shout out to Ben over at Novolux Stereophonic, the YouTube channel. He's been making some tech videos that I think are really valuable and really correct in a lot of ways, and they are in line with a lot of the things I have seen and noticed over the years. Like, these caps are almost always fine. I think in the forum days of the 2000s, we were sold the idea of recapping these receivers and how you gotta do it. That's a full restoration. You know, I am certainly extremely guilty of making recap videos and, like, you know, guide videos on how to restore and stuff if you want to do that. And, you know, there's still some merit to it. You know, we don't know when these capacitors are going to fail, but we know that, you know, these new guys here, they're probably not going to fail for 30 years. But it's so much time to just replace these capacitors, and oftentimes it's for nothing, because the ones that are in here are fine. He also demonstrated exactly what I've noticed with this tester. This thing is really good, and if it reads a certain way, it doesn't necessarily say black and white, like this thing is leaky. It does not say it's leaky, but when the capacitance value is super high, or like 2x out of spec, that's a good sign with this tester that it's probably leaky. And even Skylabs has touched on this stuff too recently in some of their videos. That's why we need to get right in here. This is the power supply board, and especially on Pioneer receivers, Pioneer power supplies are notorious for having heat problems. They get too hot. Capacitors fail due to the amount of heat they're exposed to inside of here. And you can actually see it very, very, very clearly right there. Let me zoom in on that. See, that capacitor is sitting right above a transistor that obviously gets hot, because you can see the discoloration in the circuit board right there. There's other places that we'll be seeing that once we figure out how the hell to get this board out. But anyways, what I'm trying to point at here, let me light this up. Look at that sleeve right there. It's shrinking where the heat is rising, but it's okay up here where the heat is, you know, not quite rising. So, this is also a 2SD313, which I have seen fail in power supplies. It's also got a bunch of junk going down the side of that heatsink too, so that's something I would like to replace with a MJE 1503X, whatever number is for the NPN. And then there's also some glue on these guys here, so I would like to get this board out and do some preventative maintenance on that, because I know this board will likely become a problem at some point. I was checking these caps to make sure this preamplifier wasn't about to become a problem, and I don't see any bad caps on this preamplifier board. I have not tested all of them. Oh, let's bend that back into place before we forget. But yeah, I'm going to leave the preamp alone because I think it's going to work. How do we get this power supply board out? All right, there are two screws up top on the power supply board. I was able to undo those, and then I can kind of bend this how I need to. I can probably get a soldering iron, etc. in there. So this is the one right here that I looked at and I was like, oh man, this thing is right in the path of this really hot transistor. Maybe it's going bad, but actually I can get my Peak Atlas tester leads on this capacitor. And if we take a look at the measurement we got, it's 213.4 and 0.07 ohms ESR. Here's a brand new 220/100 volt. And if we measure this one, it's almost exactly the same. So even though it's been exposed to all that heat and it looks the way it does, it's probably fine. In fact, no, not probably, it is fine. The tester said it's fine, so there's nothing to worry about with that. I would expect that to be a common theme moving forward here. A lot of this stuff is fine, but one thing with the heat is unavoidable, and that's cold solder joints. So if I can zoom in right here on that transistor, they actually don't look too bad, but they should be reflowed because that thing gets really hot. But I'm not even going to do that. I'm just going to remove that transistor because, like I said earlier, as somebody who's been doing this as a hobby for a long time, I have seen that transistor fail before. And oftentimes these things get put in these very hot environments and they'll fail. So we're going to replace this D313. So let's just triple check what we've got here. She's an NPN, just like I thought. BCE layout with 47 gain. Brand new MJE 15032 BCE. A little bit higher gain, but in a power supply we're not terribly worried about that. So that is a viable replacement. We'll go ahead and get that done. This is number 2. Yes, it is. We'll need to get some fresh thermal compound on there. Wash this thing off. Maybe not wash off, just wipe it off real good. So we'll get the old heatsink compound on there. I'll be super lazy and just kind of like so. That's plenty. And then we can stick this back in here, push it down so it gets all squished real nice and spread out. And then get our threads all dirty once we put this back in. Grab it, find the hole. Find the hole. There it is. And tighten it. There we go. Wipe that down and then this can go back in as long as it's not in the way of other things I want to take care of. It's kind of fun to set the leads, and this one you just kind of take your needle nose, grab it right there, and then just pull it straight away from you. And there you go. Alright, how did I do? Let's slide right back in. Oh man. Look at that. Got it perfect. I'm going to try to freehand it here. There are 2 more large TO220 transistors in there. One of them is another D313, the other one's a B682. These are high heat components. They get hot all the time. That makes them more prone to failure. And the other fun thing this board has is the glue. Now this glue can be corrosive. It's tough to get it on camera, but you can see those 2 resistors that are near the glue for those capacitors that we tested earlier. I can't get it too well, but they're starting to corrode. So we should replace those 2 resistors. And you know, just because we've got that glue on those capacitors, that might eventually become a problem, so we should probably get those replaced. And then there's the 2 capacitors I think I pointed out a while ago. We saw these from the top of the receiver. Once I get those transistors out of the way, I should be able to get those capacitors out. We'll test those and see how they're doing and probably just replace them no matter what. But yeah, check out the board right here. It's all discolored from the heat of the transistor. The Pioneer boards tend to do this more noticeably than other manufacturers, at least that I've found. We got more of it up there too. Here's something pretty crazy. I wasn't going to record me working on this power supply and replacing all these capacitors and stuff. You know, I've got some new stuff lined up. I'm just working, but I was going to get these capacitors right here that were just above a transistor, 47 microfarad, 63 volt, and I was messing around with this one and I was like, huh, that's kind of loose. And then I look inside, look at that right there. I haven't been there. I didn't desolder that. I just found that like that. So, you know, that was a component near a high heat source. And even though that cap might be good, I'm gonna replace it anyways. Yeah, this is crazy. I've had this roll. It was manufactured in 2014. It took me 12 years to get through it. And this new one here is from 2025. So here's to some good soldering moving forward. So I'm getting ready to do the lamps on this thing, and it's gonna be tedious. These two will be easy. There's just a lamp here and a lamp here for our speaker switches. But up here we have the other 5 on this thing. And these wires go all the way back, and we're gonna have to trace them and see where they all go. I'll start down here with this first lamp. I'm just gonna unwrap these wires. We'll take the old lamp, put it next to the new lamp, and try to get a nice wire length. Give ourselves more wire than the old one, just in case we need it. Strip these guys. Then we'll come back over here and we'll wrap each wire around each pin one at a time. To do that, I'll twist the leads here. This is a very thin wire. I'll just wrap it around here. Make a little loop. I'll do that for this one too. And I can take that loop and I can just kind of slide it over the post here. And then one at a time I'll come in and solder them. And repeat for the blue one. And it'll be fun to remember which one of these goes where. But hopefully I remember. I guess there's a 50-50 shot of me getting it correct, right? Alright, flipped it around here. I think what I'll do is I'll start from the top. This is kind of glued in. Well, not too bad. I see this bundle right here, so I'm gonna yank this or push it back a little. And it looks like it is these 2 wires for this lamp. What I can then do is figure out which 2 wires are in this bundle, because here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do them one at a time, and then I'm going to route the new ones through that same bundle if I get lucky. Alright, so we have this pin up here, and then so now I can yoink this out of here. See if my new lead is even long enough. Oh yeah, it is. Thank you, Dave. I think I'll put the wires through first. So these are in. Now I just gotta somehow route this through all this mess and get it back out front. There is a second zip tie up there, but I think I'm gonna just replace that one when I'm done. That seems like a lot of effort, because that one's enough effort already. And then I'll be taking some of this junk and just kind of putting a little gob in each spot, so that we can have the lights stick around as we fumble through this thing. Alright, next one. Probably just go into time lapse at this point. Ah, jeez. Getting glue on my fingers. Yeah, I just want to show you what's happening up close here. I just wrap the wire, I stick it on that post, and then I bring the tip in a way where you can see. Heat the post, hopefully heat the wire too, yeah. And then just a little bit. And that should be okay. It probably doesn't look very good to you in camera, but trust me, it's sufficient. And this one right here had 2 of them on it. So we'll need to slide both of them on and solder them each together. Well, I forgot to turn the camera on, but when I pulled all these guys out, they ended up just like this one. I lost a tab on each one. And the bulbs just come out like this. They're just a simple wedge style. The old ones were incandescent. What the heck did I just do? Oh, wow. Well, I just broke that tab, which is not great because I was kind of succeeding with getting this one to stay with just the one tab, but now I don't have that tab anymore. So that sucks. Oy. So anyways, this thing comes out, and I'm doing this because there's the stereo light and the FM quartz light, and I only need to take out one screw because it's broken right there. Yay! So maybe I'll super glue that. We will see. It did just fine without being super glued, I guess. But yeah, here's the 2 lamps. This one up top is the quartz locked in blue wire, and it does not seem like it wants to come out. Does the stereo want to come out? No. So right up here, this is the quartz locked light. It doesn't want to come out. And the stereo light is in black wire. It's loose now, but it too does not want to come out. So I think that means we need to pull the other side of this, and hopefully we can get it out that way. But how do I do that? I don't know. Yeah, here's how I gotta get this last screw out. I gotta take the drill bit, because you can't get a screwdriver straight in here because this massive board is in the way, and you can't remove this board. You can barely move your fingers inside of here, but I think this is coming out finally. This isn't really what I expected was about to happen, but here's what's going on. I have essentially loosened this entire board. It was secured right here by one more screw, and then we had 3 in here and then 3 up here. This is just a shield for the vacuum fluorescent displays that are on this board. And what I can do is I can finagle this in such a way and then figure out, okay, so the displays are glued to this metal thing, but I'm able to move this back far enough like so. And now I can get my frickin' lamp out after all that. And of course, if you're doing this and you were able to just yank them out, good for you. But I did not have that luxury. And now I also get the privilege of figuring out where these get soldered to. Oh, I see this blue one here. It's right up here. So quartz lock lamp is right here. That's not so bad. Stereo lamp though, it's kind of behind this board. I'll be able to get in and solder it right there. So anyways, let's start right here and get this lamp replaced. Sorry, I didn't have that in frame. I just pushed the lamp through this thing, and you can see how brown that is. If I were smart, I would remove this piece and 3D print a new one, which I might be able to do. Because yeah, that's so brown in there, the new lamp is not going to shine very nicely through that. Maybe I'll give that a shot. Can I remove this thing? There's some tabs on the back. I think I'm going to break them. Now I can 3D model this and 3D print it, and I'll probably want to retain this little piece right here. Alright, wrapping up this power supply board here, I had to order specific sized 220 microfarad capacitors to replace those two. They can't be any more than 12.5 millimeter diameter, otherwise they won't fit on the board. I also had to order a 1000 microfarad 50 volt in the radial configuration. All I had was axials for Pioneer SX737s, and then the resistors that were covered in glue, I ordered new ones of those as well. So let's go ahead and get those in. I actually ended up using my fingernails mostly to remove the old glue in here. That seemed to be the best tool for the job. You know, your fingernails are a great tool. You know, they can be strong and then not scratch stuff. You can see where I used the screwdriver a little bit, and then I eventually switched to my fingernails and everything was okay. And hopefully this is where this 1000 microfarad goes. Oh, guess who just put it in backwards? See, Pioneer marks the board with the positive leg, and then I just look at this thing that's marked and I say, oh, that's the positive. Well, no, just because they're marked doesn't mean they're the same thing, so I don't know why my head does that. It clearly says negative, but the fact that it's marked makes me think that it is, you know, marked. Just like the board has it marked. I don't know. So I had a bit of an epiphany with these switches here. You know, this is kind of an odd style switch. I had not really seen them in anything else before. So I wondered, well, what if an older style Pioneer switch would work in its place? And well, if you look at these pins right here, it's the exact same pinout, minus this middle pin, this 7th pin right here. I don't really know what that's all about. Maybe it's for like RF shielding or something. I don't know. Obviously it'll fit in the board without that pin. Well, if we take this bracket off of here, this is for the loudness switch. Does the bracket fit onto this switch? Yeah, it pretty much does. And this switch actually works. And then I can just bend our locking tabs back into place here. And then I'll just have to throw this back into our loudness board. That one's living up here. Looks like it went in this way. This bracket's what's gonna center the switch and the thing. I can bend one of these guys back and bend one of these guys back a little bit. And that's just to get it to stay secure on the board while we solder it. I should really have this board secured if I was... Yeah, see, that's not ideal. You really don't want to be doing that. See, I buy all these dang tools and then I forget that I have them and then I don't use them. This is just a little board plate thingy that's heavy and then it just holds the board in place. I should add that thing to my Amazon affiliate link page. I've been getting a lot of comments from international viewers criticizing the way I say solder. And, well, unfortunately for you, in this country, we say solder. Next, buried down a little bit lower, we've got that other board of switches right here, and then we can just slide this guy right in. And yeah, I'm trying this out because I couldn't find this style of switch anywhere. So far, the only difference I noticed, they stick out the same amount when they're not turned on, but when they are turned on, this one goes in slightly further. And hopefully there's enough travel in that faceplate button to actually actuate this switch. I won't know till I try it though. One place I'd like to go next is the power amplifier. So we've got all these connectors and stuff down here. If I undo that one, that one, that one, this should come out in a way, or maybe come out the top, but there's a few things soldered on the other end. Let's flip around. So I would like to get these out, and I think we can do it by undoing these two screws. I think these are the only other things coming out of this board, so I should be able to sneak my desoldering tool under there, and we'll see how this goes. I'm not so sure. Great success there. Can I do it one more time? got them. Now at this point it should just be simple unbolting of things. To bring you down a little bit, first thing I'm going to do is undo the connectors that are going to this board, and hopefully the plastic doesn't break because they're really old. And then it looks like 7 screws. 6, 7. We gotta get this thing undone. This one's just got the goofy little push pin things. Yeah, it's these little guys. So then I should be able to just separate the board from the mounting now that that is out, or push the receiving end of that pin out. Yep. There we are. Then we'll just put them back together like so. Keep those around. And now this thing should come right out. There's a cable tie in the back that is attached to a wire that's not supposed to come with. So I gotta undo that cable tie, zip tie, whatever you like to call it. There it is. Now it should come out. Wow, would you look at that? Pretty big hole in there now. So why did I do that? Well, there's a few capacitors on here. We can get those pretty easily, because now we can just go like that and access them. Oh, and we have a Sadie with us. What do you think? Meow. And then we've also got these goofy output transistors that are of the time. They look like that, and the connectors are really weird. They're these loose things, then you pull these metal things back, and well, there you go. It'd probably be a good idea to hit these with some new thermal compound while we've got it apart, and that will protect these things, because I don't think it's very easy to get new ones anymore. I am noticing some glue that was used on the heat sinks for our driver transistors, and it is interfering with some things, but the things it's interfering with, I don't see any corrosion starting or whatever. And I don't have these little ceramic caps in stock, so I'm gonna leave those alone. If those leads were corroded, I'd probably do something, but I'm not gonna do anything. So I disconnected the temperature sensing diodes so that they can be free as we do this. So now we can work on disconnecting these guys. Just pull up and slide out. No, free up the more. Alright, for doing this, we're just going to take these 2 screws out, put them and the locking bracket aside, carefully lift this guy up, set it off to the side, and then we've got our mica insulator that we need to be really careful about because we don't have extras. Yep, very carefully going around and popping her off. Let's wipe this old stuff off of the heat sink with a paper towel. It tends to just kind of end up in the paper towel and wipe off with relative ease. Then we'll do the same thing with our semiconductor device. Just wipe all that old stuff off. Try not to go too crazy because, you know, ESD is a thing. We don't want to fry our unobtainium transistor here. And then this mica insulator, also difficult to replace if I break it. Might be best to just hold it down and go like this. Oh yeah, I like that. Shit. Well, I was doing a good thing, and suddenly I did a bad thing. So yeah, when you crack a mica insulator, it kind of compromises its ability to do its job, which is insulate the transistor electrically from the heatsink, which is grounded. And it turns out there's actually a fairly healthy debate regarding this, whether you do mica in thermal compound or something called SilPad. And I've always just done mica and thermal compound because it's cheap and I have it and I don't really mind doing it too much. A lot of people mind it. Some people think mica and thermal compound is the best way to go and that Silpad is not good. Some people think Silpad is great. I guess it all depends on, what kind of thermal compound you're using, what kind of Silpad you're using. So I did some research and it turns out you can only get mica, what you call MT200 style mica pads on eBay out of China, and they're just some random brand and who knows what the heck it is. Or you can just cut your own Silpad, and it's pretty simple because it's just a rectangle and then there's 2 holes for the screws. So what I did is I did a little bit of research and found that this stuff called Bergquist K10 is good. It's 6/1000ths of an inch thick. It's got great thermal conductivity, and this thing right here was about 40 bucks on DigiKey, so not cheap, but I've got plenty to make mistakes with, I guess. So what I'm gonna do is, I just destroyed the one for educational purposes. We're gonna have to take off this one here so we can use it as a stencil and cut out our new insulators. This one here I had actually already done once successfully, and I decided not to leave it in the edit because the other one I felt I did a better job filming. And it turns out when you've got the fresh thermal compound on, it's a little bit more difficult to remove it. So we'll get this wiped down so we don't make such a mess. Another cat text. What door? Are you checking out the future video? Had to redo my test box. Alright, where you headed? Want to scratch this before you go? Yeah. Alright, so I'm going to try to be as clean as possible with this and try to keep it intact. We'll see how easy that is. I think I'll take my existing insulator here and I'll just kind of cut this way real quick. See what happens. Okay, that looks like it may have been sufficient. And then I'll cut this way and see what happens. Do we have a separate piece? Yes. And that was a fresh X-Acto blade I was using, by the way. So now that I have that, I need to punch a hole in it. And for that, I have purchased some hollow punches. It looks like the size for this hole, what is this? It's going to be 3 millimeters, because if I stick this through this hole, it fits kind of perfectly. So this is a 3 millimeter hole that I need to punch. And I'm going to take this wood block and this piece of scrap paper. I'll take a Sharpie and just mark the holes. Kind of colored them in there. And then of course I forgot to grab a hammer from the garage, so let's see if this punch happens to be really good and we can get away with that. And it looks like we can. In fact, I went a little too hard. And there you are. There's a new Silpad insulator for a MT200 device. And here's the best part about Silpads is you just place it on your heatsink. I think what we'll do is we'll go like this, we'll put those on, then I might just slide this over like this. So it'll be a little bit easier. And then we can just put that on there. And there. Simple, clean perfection. Now we just gotta do that 7 more times. just put these on temporarily so I can get it in a little bit more easy. We've reconnected the temperature sensing diodes down here. All these guys got plugged back in. I guess one thing worth noting, well, one, I have to take this off so I can get this screwdriver in straight to prevent cross-threading these guys. So that's why that came off. And then it's really important now, more than ever, that these sill pad surfaces are clean and free of any amount of debris, because you don't have that thermal compound to kind of take up that space anymore. It's kind of the idea behind the thermal compound. Is you take this mica and you coat either side of it, it's going to fill in all those air gaps, and you don't get that with this sill pad. At least not nearly as much. So, got to be mindful of that when that's happening. But now we can just kind of shove that back in at a certain point. Up here I only changed these two. These guys tested great and these guys tested great. So we're just going to leave them. So you all know this view. It's August 8th, 2026, around 7 p.m. And you can't really see those mountains too well today. You can't really see much of anything too well today. Wildfire smoke from Washington State is creating an interesting vibe out here. Hopefully this clears up soon. But anyways, I think I'm ready to try and stick this thing back in here. This is probably going to be quite clunky, but we'll see. Maybe it'll be easy, who knows. Something's probably going to go wrong in testing though. We might need to take it back out. One thing I ended up doing was replacing this, and I made a 3D printed part right here. So this should do a little bit better job of diffusing this light than this grayed out thing, or it'll just do exactly the same kind of job that it did before. But anyways, this piece was this way, I believe, and this is gonna snap in. I've got my snaps back here. It's just gonna go like this, or actually it's gonna go like this. And there it is. We're snapped in. This thing is so complicated to put back together, I can't even describe it. Man, getting this board back in, just as crazy as it is getting it out. I do need to put my lamps back in, so I'll probably add a dab of glue because I drilled them out a little loose. They don't really stay in there very securely. I do need to re-secure my power supply board. I think we are pretty much done with the power supply. I replaced a few transistors and a few capacitors on here. I ended up replacing most of the capacitors just because of the proximity to heat. A lot of them tested good, but I just replaced them anyways. The only thing I didn't record was these two guys right here. You can see I put two TO-120s in there, and that was because the circuit board was very discolored around those old TO-92s. So that's why those got replaced. Just figured anything that's getting really hot should get replaced. So I'm getting to the point here where I'd kind of like to do a test run, see if this thing still powers on. I don't love how this is just dangling everywhere, so maybe I can try to secure some stuff and we can do a power up, because I've been pretty bad about that with this video. I've just been kind of going and going and going, not taking any time to power stuff up as I go. Yeah, I really need to reinstall the supporting plate here. This guy needs to go back on before any of this can be safely powered up again, so I guess I'll figure that out. You know what I always say? Anybody can take stuff apart. Very few can put it back together. And I am striving to be one of the few. And I am being tested today. So hopefully I can get this right. So getting this back together is awful. Just awful. Terrible, terrible experience. The best piece of advice I have is these guys in here, these push rods or whatever that control the selector switches. Just take them out and then start doing everything one by one. You see I don't even have these tightened yet, but I marked these 1, 2, 3 so I knew which one went where, and yeah, it's a pain. It's not nice. So I'm here because I want to put this on the dim bulb and make sure everything's working. I'll throw this into the test box, which is turned off. We'll set this to dim bulb, and let's see. All right, we still have these guys. We don't want these to short on anything. All right, I guess this is moment of truth. Is it gonna be okay? Yes, yes it is. Okay, I think I heard things click in. No, we already have our first error. I thought I got these correct, but clearly I did not, because when I turn this one on, that one lights up, and when I turn this one on, that one lights up. So I'll need to change that. And let's check all these guys. That's turned on. Oh, well, that's just great. This was working. I think I see what's happening here. This just isn't in tight right now. I have one more screw to put in, and if this thing is down kind of low, it'll get stuck like that, but then I have to pick it up. So all those lights work. That's good to see. I am most certainly curious to see if our volume control was successfully cleaned and all the rest of these controls are working okay. On the scope, it would appear that we've got basically no DC offset. When I turn the speakers on, that's pretty much the same. When I turn the volume up, looks like we've got some tunes. So let's take a listen for the first time since all this work we've done. Volume down. Speakers are on. How about that? I'll tell you what, folks, it doesn't really sound right to me. I know how Walk Through the Park should sound, so let's take a look at that. Okay, that sounds great to me. The volume control is definitely clean again, so that got fixed. Happy to notice that. Alright, well there is one thing I'm noticing, and I have not cleaned this yet. Hear that scratchiness? That scratchiness in here? That's because we haven't cleaned the tuner cap yet. Other than that, we're pulling in stations pretty well. And believe it or not, I'm using one of the old indicator lamps from up here as an antenna right now. There is something funky going on here, and I can see it in the VU meters too. The right channel is getting quieter and louder intermittently. So right now, it's the same, but if I go, I'm not sure how to reproduce it, but I'm hearing it and I'm seeing it on the VU meters. The right channel will drop out slightly, and I don't know why that is. It looks like everything's working, with the exception of these lamps that I need to swap. Hopefully I can pull that off without taking this whole thing apart again, because, like I said, this is not fun to put back together. Not fun at all. One little thing I am dying to know is if my new switch, if I'm going to be able to push that button with the faceplate. Alright, so this is about how I'll be sitting, and can I hit this? Yes. Even though that switch has longer travel, I can still hit that button with the faceplate. This is great. And my lights are coming through on this thing too. That's awesome. Alright, let's get that tuner cap taken care of. We'll take some of this stuff, spray it all over. And that there should be sufficient for getting that thing cleaned up. Should have nice quiet tuner operation after this. Also, as we saw, I have confirmed that these lamps are working, so now I'm going to stick them in their forever home. The stereo one, marked with my Scotch tape that says ST, goes in the lower hole, and then the quartz lock lamp goes in the upper hole. And I've run them under these wires so that they stay out of the way of our tuner string. And since my holes were drilled slightly oversized, I need to secure them with a little bit of glue. So I'll just pull one of these numbers and let it dry. And remember when I was noticing that there was some weird inconsistencies with the volume level when I looked at the VU meters? Well, I already found that, and it's this switch right here. This is the muting switch, and it just kind of attenuates the volume control. Some other Pioneer gear has this switch on it. I don't see it that often though, but let me show you what I found. So here it is in the corner there. At first I thought it might have been dirty still, but then I moved it around. I just kind of jiggled it, and you can see that thing moves quite a bit. Just when I moved the shaft out here. And then I thought, is that a cold solder joint? Sure is. If we zoom in right there, check it out. You can see it moving around. That one right there, I think. Let's go ahead and reflow that, shall we? And now it's a little more solid. And then to get those lamps swapped on the speaker switches, we'll have to loosen the speaker switches themselves, and hopefully I can get in there. I did glue them earlier today, I think, so maybe the glue will still be a little bit soft and I'll be able to get the lamps out of the slots easily. And then I have to take the headphone jack out again. You know, it's funny. One of the lamps fell out off camera when I was trying to get stuff back together, and I spent a lot of time trying to reattach these and didn't record it because the one fell out. I just wish I had known that they were wrong. Maybe if I'm lucky I can get the preamp out of the way. Okay, and that actually gives me halfway decent access to the lamps. You can see they're right there where my finger's pointing. I just pulled the one out. Can I pull the other one out? Yes, I can. And now I'm just swapping them over. That wasn't so bad. I think that testing went pretty well, so I will start working on the reassembly of all of this and adding all of the screws back in. Then the lamp diffuser, it's going to go back on. We still need to glue that. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of loosening it, and I'm just kind of pushing it into this broken piece, and then I'm going to tighten. But then I'm going to take this broken piece off, and then I will apply some super glue to it, and we'll glue it back in place. Let's see if there's any left in here. There's a tiny bit coming out of there. Enough for us for this purpose. So we'll that in place, put this back in, pinch them together, and then for good measure I'll just take this and make the room smell bad real quick. And for the record, that actually doesn't smell that bad. Alright, we're back in the bathroom. We're gonna give this thing a nice wash. I brought some tools upstairs with me. Well, one I guess you could call soap a tool, right? This here is some Dawn dish soap, and this is just a Harbor Freight $1 plastic bristle brush. And some of these buttons are very, very gross. I'd like to get them with this brush here. See if I can get them cleaned up that way. And since this video is already over an hour long, I thought I'd talk to you guys about something completely not related to vintage stereos, and that is Dawn dish soap. If you don't want to hear me rant about Dawn dish soap, well, skip ahead, because this is going to be very silly, because I did something very silly recently. What if I told you that I went out of my way to purchase Dawn dish soap that was manufactured 4 years ago? It is 2026, and what you've gotten here is the old scent Dawn dish soap. Because sometime in 2023 or so, Procter & Gamble, in their infinite wisdom, decided to give Dawn dish soap a new scent. And that new scent is one of the most disgusting, awful things I have ever smelled. And I was furious because, I've been a Dawn dish soap buyer for pretty much my whole life. Like, growing up, we used Dawn dish soap in the dorms. Sorry, not the dorms. My apartment in college, I used Dawn dish soap, the original blue stuff. And it was great. It smelled nice, wasn't too strong. It didn't really stick to your hands much. You just kind of use it. It's a great soap. It works really well. You shouldn't really be thinking much about your dish soap, should you? Your dish soap should be something that you just use and you have no problems with it, and you just quietly appreciate it. Well, I didn't know how much I appreciated original Dawn dish soap until they changed the formula, changed the scent. I mean, look this up, folks. Look it up. It's on Reddit. It's on Facebook groups, etc. Like, they changed it to something that smells just awful. Like, it is strong. It sticks to your hands. It's nothing like this. It's like something almost completely different. And so I said I did a silly thing, right? Here's what I did. I went on eBay, because this is a thing, and found somebody who was selling old scent Dawn dish soap. I bought a jug, like one of the large jugs of this stuff. I paid $60 for that large jug of Dawn dish soap. And it took me this long to do it because all I had left was like what was in here, and I milked it for like 3 years, just like this much. And I used it only for special things like this. But now I've got myself a jug of original old scent Dawn dish soap, and I'm very, very happily using it on this faceplate. Have any of you noticed this? Have any of you watching had this realization about Dawn dish soap? Were you suddenly heartbroken and furious when you realized what they had done to their great product and made it terrible? Let me know in the comments. I'm curious. And believe me, I messaged them. I let the Dawn dish soap Facebook page know how I felt. I did not leave them a nice message. I was not polite with them. And they've made a terrible mistake. And it's very sad. I'll tell you what, folks, it's smelling great in here. Actually, no, I don't really smell it anymore because I washed it away. And it's not really sticking around more than it needs to because it's dish soap and it shouldn't stink so bad like the new stuff does. Anyways, that's how I feel. Now we're doing everybody's favorite thing, using the wife's nice bath towels hand towels that we bought, 5 years ago and have washed however the frig many times for what, $6? Folks, this isn't a nice towel. This is just an old Target thing, and I'm wiping something down that's been cleaned. Just like you wipe your hands down when you wash them and they're clean. I don't see what the big deal is. Alright, let's try out the polish here. The Semi-Chrome. I would use this outside to avoid fumes, but it is nighttime, so I'm using the bathroom fan instead. Because this stuff does have less than pleasant fumes. It is my hope that this works well on these buttons because the Dawn dish soap didn't do so well on the buttons. Looks like it might be doing something. Well, that certainly suggests it's doing something. Well, that's looking a lot better. We're not really going to get much better than that. Some of those buttons were real gross before. Whoever used this before really liked using headphones because phones is faded and the speaker on-off buttons, they're the most faded buttons or most damaged out of all the buttons on this thing. Not that that really matters, but it's just a fun little observation I've made. Yeah, Hodor's all like, will you please hurry up and finish the Pioneer SX3900 so you can give me snuggles? That'd be great. Thank you. All right, August 15th, Saturday morning. Much better. This is what we like to see. We got rain. It's a little bit cooler now. Still some fires in the vicinity, but I'll take this. So we've got all the lamps replaced, but these little socket things are broken like we talked about earlier. So what is a solution for that? Well, I got my hands on this little harness that has these other style connectors that can work with this. This was sent to me by Dave and he no longer sells to other people, so don't ask me where you can get this. Just check eBay. There's solutions on there if you're looking for one of these on your own. But basically what I gotta do is, well, I gotta take these lamps out since we're gonna be using them in the new setup here. And then you can see we attach right here. We have our second and third ones in from the left over here. Gotta yank these out of here. And then we will solder the new ones onto these posts. So I think I'll strip this end here since this is plenty of wire for what I need. I'll twist my leads and then wrap them around my tiniest screwdriver, like so. Get it to look kind of like that. Then we'll go under the string, jam one of these down the post here. There's one, I think I'll just solder that immediately, and that'll just make it easier for me to deal with the other one. Then I can populate these new ones here. Probably bend that wire back a little. Probably chop these and then just put some heat shrink tubing on the end of each one. Slide that over. Slide that over. Who doesn't like a little fire every once in a while? There we go. And then I don't love how these snap in, but it's what we've got. You gotta bend them quite. Holy shit, what the f? No. I'm still on line voltage. Just got a little bit of 120, 60 hertz right there. I touched that. Let's make sure they turn on. Yep, they sure do. So I'm letting this thing kind of warm up before I do any of the amplifier adjustments. The service manual does not say to let it warm up, but I'm letting it warm up because, you know, others do, and there's quite a few adjustments on this. There's actually 2 bias pots per channel instead of just 1 like a normal amplifier. And I want to make sure my sill pads are actually doing the MT200's justice. So I'm playing around with this. It's been on for a few minutes. If we go look at that power supply where all those transistors are that I replaced, we're seeing some really, really high temperatures in there. And that's just the way Pioneer power supplies are. Like, I can feel that off the back of my hand for sure. But, you know, we come over here to the power amplifier, not nearly as severe of temperatures. And this is a very difficult thing to kind of look at. Like, I would love to just feel these transistors with my finger, but I feel like there's a good chance of me getting shocked if I stick my finger in there. So maybe I could turn it off first or something. But if I go in here with the thermal camera, it would appear to me the heat sink is a similar color to the transistor, and that means heat is being moved from the transistor to the heatsink. That's mostly what we're trying to see here. And then the heatsink is pretty warm. I think we're okay. I think the sill pads are doing their job. So see, check this out. You've got 3 pots right here and 3 pots right here. Your blue ones are for the DC offset and the white ones are bias, 2 per channel. And then we've got these openings in the board with those 2 posts going across the openings. Those are your test points for measuring the bias. So let's get a quick baseline of where we are with all of this. So we'll do millivolts DC. First, let me measure at the speakers. Let's check our DC offset, which we can just go right here for. We've got -10 on the one channel, and then the other channel about -9. Service manual wants it ±30, so that's really good. And now let's head over to the amplifier board. I'm going to measure across those test points in here. Let's see. One of the channels we're at 46 millivolts. It wants you to get it at 70. And then the other one over here, 52. So I'm just going to figure out which way brings these down first. Okay, that brings it down. So we'll turn that one all the way down. And then that brings this one down. Ooh. We don't like the end of the travel on that pot, do we? See, if I turn this down all the way, it goes up high. So we gotta be careful about that. That's one reason people like to replace these pots. They're not exactly reliable at this point. So let's just bring this one to the 56 like it says. I believe I'm doing that correctly. And then we'll bring this one to the 70. And there's that. So we should be running a little bit hotter at this point, right? Let's do 69, because that's nice. Let's get these out of here. Let's move on to the other channel. Okay, let's bring them down that way and that way. All right, bring up to 56. Oh, too high, a little touchy. All right, we'll call that 56. Then we'll bring this one up to 70. Or bring it up such that we get 70. Or 69 like the last one. This is one of those times where I wish I had a second Fluke multimeter. That would make my life a little bit easier. So let's go back and check our DC offset. So on that side we're still at 2 millivolts, so that's good. And on the other side we're at 15. So that's probably good too. So this thing's just gonna run a touch hotter now, which I don't know how I feel about, but if it's what the service manual says, it's what the service manual says. I'm gonna slip the bottom cover underneath this thing real quick because I want proper venting. I think now we need to do the FM alignment because while this is stabilizing, or getting its stuff together, let's just check to make sure we haven't gone too far off the rails. Okay, climbed up a little bit on that one, and climbed up a lot on that one, so let's reset this one, because that's too high. The bias is too damn high. So I'm getting geared up to do the FM alignment on this thing. We've got lots of steps to follow. Just for the FM, it looks like we have 29 steps. So that'll be fun. That's all going to be happening right in here. We've got the SG-165 to generate an FM signal that we can then see on the scope. And then this is just to make sure that this is set to what it's actually supposed to be, because this is off. And that is less off. So then maybe we'll use the multimeter too. This thing right here, this is just a frequency counter. So like this is counting what's actually being brought in, and then this is your thing that we're trying to adjust so that this is true. So first thing we're gonna do is put it in the vicinity of 106 so that there's no input signal. So I've got one of the speakers turned on. Let's just turn this up so we can listen. Like if I turn that exactly to 106, you see we've got something, and you can kind of see that on the scope here. But if we go off to the side, or it's just static and we don't hear anything, that's what we want right there. So that looks good. Go back to load so we don't have to listen to that. Rotate the N core of T2 so that the voltage between number 8 and number 7 terminals on the tuner assembly is reduced to DC 0 volts. Alright, so T2 is right there. It's right under those guys, but like what does N core mean? I've got A and B core. Which one is N? I'm going to assume that they mean the A core, because step 10 says to rotate the A core so that there's 0 volts. So I've got the multimeter on pins 7 and 8. They're right around there. We see we're hanging out at about 440 millivolts-ish. So that's going to be right in there, that top one with that thing with the purple line on it. So we'll take this guy here. It's got like a hexagon end, and we'll stick it down there. And then we'll carefully turn this until we see 0. Oh, wrong way. Let's see. There. That's pretty close. I'm gonna call that great, because this will jump around a little bit, right? So, alright, so now we're setting the dial pointer to 106. That's 106, pretty much dead on. And then we need to set the signal generator to 106, and I'm gonna use my frequency counter for that. Let's bring it up. Just cranking this. Oh, too far. That's basically 106. There we go. So then I'll unplug this, and I'll plug my thing back in so that it's going to here. And as you can see, we're not getting any sine wave right there, but we're about to. We're pretty far off right now. Now it wants us to adjust TC1 so that we have 0 volts. TC1 is right there. Alright, I feel like an idiot. I was supposed to turn TC1, which is actually that one right there, that kind of pink and black looking thing. And then I looked at the picture and saw T1 and I was like, oh yeah, it's that one. No, it's not that one. This is the one. This is a big one. This one kind of determines like where this pointer is about to actually be in reality. Like think of the FM band as like, you know, 88 to 108 or whatever. And you've got to center that per what this says. So like before, like the whole thing was shifted this way. So you've got your 2 points that you can control. You control your end point on the right with TC1. Then you control your end point on the left with L2 or whatever it was, that white one right in there. So that's kind of what's going on. If I were to turn TC1, and I don't want to turn TC1 because I've got it really nice right now, you would see the frequency on this thing change, because that's just a frequency counter. It's just counting whatever is being generated per all these settings. That all looks fine, so now I got to do 90 again. Alright, so it's looking good. I have repeated steps 3 through 6 a few times. So now if I'm tuned out in no man's land where there's no signal, I've got 0 volts right there. If I come in from this way, move it to the right, I can dial it in such that it reads 0 when this is pointing exactly at 106 and this says 106. And then down here I had to do something a little interesting. I noticed that when I set my SG to 90, and I'll do that right now, there, if I want to pick up that station, so I'll tune this to 90 and I'll bring this to be 0. But look what that says. It says 90.05. So what I did is I changed it so that my signal generator reads 89.95. And then if I go back over here and I get right on that 90 mark, right there at 90, I'll make that say 0, which means we're tuned in the center basically. That's why we're trying to get that thing to say 0. If I make that dead on 90, now that says 90. So just little things that I'm doing here, because, you know, do I trust all this fully? No. But do I want that to say what that says? Yeah, absolutely. So that's what I'm doing here. Now for the interesting part, we're going to do step 8, which is basically we set the signal generator to 106 and we're going to dial back the amplitude of the signal. So that's with these guys right here. We're going to take the microvolt output down and we're going to see how that signal looks on the oscilloscope. So now we're going to head back up to 106. We're going to tune on that such that it says 0 volts. Good enough right there. You see we're dialed in, but I'm going to pull these guys back. Let's go to X10. See how that got a little shaky right there? I'm going to dial it down a little bit more. See, we're starting to get a little bit gnarly there. And that's in the X1, so we'll go back to the X10. Honestly, that looks really good. For being an X10 and the minimum microvolt output, that's really tight. So tight to the point where I don't know how much I'm going to get by doing the next adjustments. But yeah, once TC2, 3, 4, and 1. So that's going to be the little tiny screws on top of the tuner cap, and then that one that I was turning earlier that I wasn't supposed to. So the outside and middle screws on there, and then back there that guy. So I will turn those and see if I get any improvement or whatever. Okay, I like the way that looks. Then it says to go to a place where there's no signal. That looks like no signal to me. And then we go back to that A core of T2 and rotate it such that we have 0 volts on the multimeter. And then also in step 8 we've got to do the L2, L5, and L6 at 90 megahertz. So those are going to be that one right there, and then we've got you know, the 2 coils right there that we might have to play with. Get the sensitivity right, so that's a little scary. Alright, I'm trying bending those coils and I have no idea what the heck I'm doing with that, so I'm just gonna stop that. Next it wants 98 megahertz, so we'll go grab that. It's kind of weird. In order to tune to 98 I have to be off a little bit, but I checked my 90 and my 106 again and they're both dead on, so something in the scaling of the channels here is kind of weird or messed up. But anyways, we're tuned to 98 and it wants us to fine adjust the tuning meter such that we get 0 volts at this spot, and then we're going to rotate the B core of T2 until we have reduced distortion. Well, I don't have a distortion meter, but that looks distorted to me, so let's see if by rotating that we can get it to look any better than that. All I'm able to do with this one is change the amplitude, it seems. So I guess we can make it not super loud, but kind of like that, I guess. I don't know. I don't have the proper gear to make that adjustment. And now I don't know how to convert 60 dB to microvolt output, but it wants us to adjust a certain meter until the signal strength thing reads 5. So we're looking right there at those bars. I can tell you that we're at the maximum signal strength right now, but if I turn this down to about 500 microvolts, or turn it down here, you know, our signal starts to get weak. We have a signal, but it's weak, so it would make sense that I can get it up to 5 around here. If 6 times 1,000 on here is 60 dB, well, then I'd say we're pretty okay. So I don't think I'll worry about it. The signal strength seems to make sense with our test equipment here. Now we have to turn FM muting off, And we're gonna set this to 20 dB, which, I don't know, I guess we can do 0.2 right there. I don't know, you can see up here, like, if I bring up the signal, I can get muting to turn off. Seems to be working pretty okay. So now we get to set all the stereo stuff. So now it wants us to, I think we gotta use our frequency counter. So what it wants us to do is get 76 kilohertz at pin 6. I hooked that thing up to pin 6 and we've got 76 kilohertz. So now what I want to do is I want to get these signals on top of one another. And then what we're going to take a look at is we're going to turn one of the channels off. Well, there's mono right there, but we have stereo right here. And we can see that that line is pretty straight. If I turn up the volume, that line remains quite straight. So that tells us the stereo separation is pretty good right now. Looks like our channels are not quite exactly overlapping, but that's not a huge deal. Now we got the crystal detector. So now we have to do this. We'll set it how we set it, and then we need to do some TC201 stuff, which is this guy on the detector assembly, this little secondary board right here. And now we need to do across pin 9 and ground. So I can rotate that B core first. It says plus minus 30 millivolts for this. There we go. And then we're going to check AC, and we're going to turn the A core until that has no noise, apparently. Yeah, that's as low as I can get it. I don't like this at all. I don't think I understand that one. I'm just going to leave that about how I found it. What was it, 0.67? 67. Alright folks, that's enough FM tuning for me. I think it's time to take a listen and see how does everything sound. Shut that off. We're pulling in everything. Again, there's no antenna on this thing. I mean, the big question is, can we get KGLT 91.9? Looks like we can. And it comes in stereo with no antenna. So that is excellent. All right, it is time for the power test. We're gonna see how many watts per channel this thing puts into 8 ohms. We've got our signal coming into the tape input. And then we've got our oscilloscope reading the output across the 8 ohm load resistor. So let's see what we get. I've got my probes set to 10x, so we won't really be able to reliably count on these numbers. You should probably multiply them by 10. But I've got my voltmeter going down here so I can watch the actual number. Bring this up. There's the clipping. Then I can bring this down with the tone generator. That right there makes it about flat. See, I don't have very good resolution with this notched volume pot. That was putting out about 33 volts AC, and that is about 135 watts per channel. So we are definitely meeting the 120 this thing is rated for. Pretty awesome. But there's one last thing we've got to do, and that is set the meters right here. So what it wants us to do is take our signal generator input and connect directly to the power amp. So I'm undoing those jumpers in the back. And then what it wants me to do is adjust this such that I get 8.95 volts AC coming out of my power amplifier. There it is, 8.95 volts AC. Then it wants me to adjust these two guys so that each meter reads exactly 10 watts. And if I look at my meters, I'm already there. I'll try turning them, but we'll see what happens. Okay, so that makes it go too high. That's a nice bright 10. Too high. And that's a nice bright 10 right there. So if I bring this down a little bit, do they each go down together? I'm bringing that down slowly, and they're both behaving exactly the same. Then just a quick little PSA regarding square waves. I've put this back into the preamp in so it's wired normally. I was looking at my scope output for a square wave, and it looked like this. And I was like, huh, that's not right. It's supposed to look like this. And I had forgotten that I'd left the loudness on. You should always do these types of measurements with the loudness turned off. What do you say we bring this saga to a close and put this thing's covers and faceplate back on? I mean, just look at that. That is cool. That is so cool. I mean, come on, folks. Look at this thing. Remember how bad this thing looked when it came in first? We've got these indicator lamps replaced. All these VFDs are working great. Those indicator lamps are correct now. Wow, this thing is just stunning. I really like this. This is dreamy. Oh, it looks so cool. And what would this channel be without the final test? Clean volume control. Clean balance. That works again. That works again, but we don't really care about that one. Everything's clean again. So that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed watching the resurrection of this Pioneer SX3900, which I think is underrated. This thing is really cool. It just lives in the shadow of the SX 1980, and that's a shame because this thing it's really nice. I like it quite a bit. I do have some announcements to make. I have just made an Instagram account, a Facebook account, and a TikTok account. So if you are on those platforms and you'd like to see more of whatever the heck it is we do here, be sure to follow me on those platforms. I have also updated my Amazon affiliates page so that if you need tools that I use in these videos, or you want to buy some Deoxit, or you want to buy one of the Hakko FR301s, this is a 300, but that's because it's old. Check out my Amazon affiliate links page, and you can help support the channel by giving me a small amount of commission on anything you might want to buy that's related to this sort of thing. And as always, thank you to my subscribers, and thank you to my members who get early access to videos just like this one. I will see you in the next one. Pretty good timing with Walk Through the Park.